It might seem unlikely, but the world's many lakes are in fact some of the most unusual, inexplicable, and deadly natural phenomena on the planet, from unheard of natural events to countless human disappearances and even bodies of water that suddenly vanish and reappear again. Here are 10 of the most mysterious lakes that exist. Number 10. Dead Lake. The name of this one alone should be enough to tell you that this lake in Kazakhstan is far from your ordinary body of water, otherwise known as Lake Kaindi. This lake, near the southern city of Mati, is steeped in a long history of mystery, including human deaths, most of which were unfortunate tourist drownings. But the corpses hiding beneath its depths are not the only reason for its disturbing name and reputation, as the waters are also believed to be totally unable to support life from small fish to frogs and other native amphibians. The water in which it maintains its vibrant cobalt hue due to the abundant deposit of limestone and algae in its depths stays cold even in the warmest seasons and is not known to evaporate in a normal cup. The lake is not just a human cemetery either, because the earthquake that created it in 1911 also submerged the nearby spruce forest in water, drowning the roots but preserving the existing trees, which are now. They sprout all over the surface like ghostly boat masts. Number 9. Lake Tahoe. This lake in the United States, neighboring Nevada and California, may not be particularly threatening. In fact, it's a widely popular place for tourists to spend a summer afternoon. But this lake hides some sinister secrets beneath the surface. First, Lake Tahoe is notorious for its own response to the Lake Ness monster, an elusive beast only named Tessie, who supposedly stalks the waters. Eye has been seen many times but never captured on camera, but there has been. It might not be the only reason people lose their lives here, as it was also supposedly a popular dumping ground for mob victims during the 20s, a theory that even came up in The Godfather. Part 2. The bodies are well preserved in the near-freezing temperatures at the deepest points of the lakes and have been known to appear years later in neighboring Pyramid Lake, which is connected by an underwater tunnel system, just like the tragic discovery of a bus. In 2011, who had been lost for 17 years, French explorer James Cousteau made a deep water dive in the 70s and returned to the surface stating that the world is not ready for what was down there. So I imagine we will never really know what is down there. Number 8. Blue Lake. Known as Blue Water, this body of water in Kabardino-Balkaria, Russia, leaves more questions. What answers? The water itself does not originate from the ocean or nearby rivers, but from the world's largest underground cave system, and never loses its bright blue color as a result of the large amount of zourite and hydrogen sulfide at the bottom, which also gives it its charming local name, Xeric Hell or Stinking Lake. In addition to smelling like rotten eggs, it is also believed to be one of the deepest lakes in the world. Still too. Impressive depth of 257 meters, which is only increasing due to erosion and caves at the bottom, but that's not all. Supposedly the water remains at 9.30 during all seasons, and it is clear that visibility can reach 40 meters. The lake is still mostly unexplored due to its dangerous depths, and an Israeli bus, who tried to explore its vastness in 2012, was tragically only recovered a week later, and his diving equipment mysteriously still worked. Whim number 7, Lake Brosno. Citation from Lake Tahoe was not enough. Another mysterious sea monster supposedly lurks under the surface of this lake near Moscow, Russia. The Brezno or Brosnia dragon has been spoken of in Russian folklore as the inhabitant of this lake since the 13th century, and many witnesses still claim to have seen the beast with their own eyes. Of course, there have been attempts to explain all this hysteria using science, which proposes that the creature could just be an unusually large beaver, or an SOS mutant, while a more likely alternative suggests that the hydrogen sulfide emanating from the bottom could resemble a dragon's head and could even carry enough force to flip a small fishing boat. Number 6. Lost Lake. Lost Lake in Oregon, in the United States, has earned its unique name because it is literally impossible to locate during the summer months. What was a standard lake, 85 acres and 2.7 meter deep by the middle of the year, fades like completely periodically, leaving only a leafy meadow with no trace of its former watery happiness. At first it might seem like the whole thing just evaporates, but that would need some serious heat in its place. Researchers have discovered that the secret behind the miraculous disappearance of this lake was two lava tubes that drain into the lake as if they were removing a plug from a giant bath due to ancient volcanic flows. These holes continuously drain the lake of water, and in the warm season, when the currents approach, that fall into it completely, they dry up. Their drainage power is actually enough to swallow the entire lake until the next rainy season. Number 5. Lake Nicaragua. What is so special about this lake? Besides being the largest freshwater lake in Central America, it is not any mysterious chemical quality or unexplored depth that gives it a place on this list, but its usual inhabitants. And I'm not talking about another Nessie. Lake Nicaragua is actually the only lake in the world that's home a native population of sharks, specifically bull sharks, along with a host of other marine species such as sawfish and tarpon, like this, making it unusual for sharks to live comfortably in a freshwater environment like this. Scientists were trying to get to the bottom from the shark-infested lake. Originally, assuming the species was introduced by humans, they were a totally different shark species. This is because although only 19 kilometers from the Pacific Ocean, in some places the lake is not. It connects to the surrounding seawaters. An experiment, which tagged bull sharks in Lake Nicaragua, and then they were located in the Caribbean Sea. He eventually solved the mystery by revealing that sharks could make the 120-mile trip down the nearby San Juan River to reach Lake Number 4, Jellyfish Lake. If a jellyfish-infested lake is not enough to prove that some places are not worth diving, then take a look at Palados Jellyfish Lake, which, as its name suggests, it is home to an overwhelming population of over 1,000 of these little creatures. Surprisingly, the world-famous Jellyfish Lake is a popular destination, and hundreds of tourists are brave enough to enter the water each year to swim alongside these fascinating creatures. Fortunately, the varied species in this lake include the golden jellyfish and the moon jellyfish, which reportedly do not have enough stinging cells to seriously injure a human, so swimming is allowed. But special attention and a $100 pass are still required. In 1998, there was a mysterious reduction in jellyfish in the lake, and by the end of this year, the jellyfish species had completely vanished. Astonished scientists were eventually able to identify this rapid decline as a direct result of the El Niño weather event, which dramatically increased the year's temperature. But in subsequent years, a healthy annual increase in the jellyfish population has been identified under condition. Moderate climate. Number 3, Blast Crater. Blast Crater Lake sounds pretty scary to me. All are located by the Queen Elizabeth National Park in Uganda, the largest and worst of which can be found in an area known as the Cage Explosion Crater, north of Hue to the peninsula, being the number salt distributor in Uganda. This horrible-looking lake is 995 meters deep and cannot support any animal life or old age. Due to its incredibly high salt contents, the Explosion Crater Lake originates from a long history of volcanic eruptions dating back between 8,000 and 10,000 years ago, which caused quite a bit of damage when the craters threw fire and sulfur into the nearby areas. Although dormant for many years, Lake Katwa and other explosion crater lakes still contain sulfur residues and often emit clouds of surface gases, and the unusually dark appearance of the waters may be a result of the way in which craters discharge ash and rock during their most active periods. Needless to say, swimming is not allowed in this lake, but the Cage Explosion Crater Tour is still a widely popular safari destination and offers tourists a glimpse of native flamingo, monkey, and even number 2 elephant populations. Lake Berryessa. The Lake Berryessa Reserve, located 120 kilometers north of San Francisco, was a fairly ordinary lake until 2017, when a hole in 21 men wide apparently appeared out of nowhere, dramatically sucking the contents around the lake with surprising power. Information about this inexplicable potential giant sinkhole began to spread, and local people rushed to the reserve site to watch in horror this strange phenomenon. While many worried about the origins of this huge inverted source and that enhancing seismic activity under the surface could have caused it to open, it turned out that the huge hole was actually just one man-made glory hole, designed to drain the reserve and keep it from overflowing while also acting as a ramp for a nearby dam. The reason behind its sudden appearance was actually a result of a large amount of rain after a long 10-year drought period, which had rendered the glory hole useless until 2017. In fact, images showing the lake during this long period of drought clearly show the hole, only it wasn't so noticeable until it was turned into a Lake number 1, Lac de Gafsa, is devoured. So the Great Hole of Berrioza might have had a pretty logical explanation, but no one was prepared for the miraculous nocturnal arrival of this lake in the hugging deserts of Tunisia. When it hit the news in August 2014, a local man claimed to have seen the lake for the first time in the desert canyon, 25 kilometers from the city of Gafsa, on his way back from the north of the country, and thought he must have been hallucinating. Since a lake of that size is unheard of in the Fortio Desert, soon hundreds were heading to the lake, now called Lac de Gapsa, to see if this mysterious lake was really a mirage. After all, although many jumped straight into the water and stayed on their beach banks, warnings soon came that the water was most likely contaminated with cancer-causing chemicals, or even larger deposits of phosphate, which would have left behind radioactive resites in its path the vast expanse. Wealth quickly turned a muddy green due to a sudden appearance of eras in the lake, proving that there were no natural means of replenishment, and therefore making its waters highly conductive of scientific diseases. They have since concluded that the lake was probably created when seismic activity altered the underground water table, filling the extensive top with liquid, and if these large cracks did exist, they would also have the ability to suck people in, so this miracle lake was more. Damn, after all, did you know about the existence of some of these lakes? Would you be willing to visit any of them in the future? Share your answer with us. If you were surprised by all this information, let me know in the comments of the video, and never cease to be amazed. Thank you very much for watching and subscribe to Amazing.